Please take your seats. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to commence. Please take your seats. We are about to commence. Thank you.
Every great thing that ever happened began as a dream. Propelled by bold dreams, visionary African leaders are transforming their nations and creating prosperity to realize Africa's potential. With rapid population growth, ambitious youth, and enormous opportunity, African nations are emerging as cornerstones of the global economy. For decades, government leaders have chosen to partner with Matrelli to implement transformative, national-scale solutions. Together, we've executed more than 100 projects that provide millions with access to essential infrastructure and services. Redefining urban living with sustainable urbanization initiatives. Building self-sustaining national food agro-industries. Developing comprehensive national education systems, delivering pioneering renewable energy solutions, deploying advanced communication networks, and promoting accessible, quality healthcare for all. Working alongside forward-thinking governments and local communities, we bring an ecosystem of broad expertise and innovative solutions that address immediate needs while driving long-term prosperity. Our proven capabilities and strong international relationships enable us to secure project financing through diverse funding models and deliver sustainable, meaningful impact aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Africa's transformation is led by its leaders, powered by its people, and scaled by trusted partnerships. We are Matrelli, your solutions partner to transform audacious vision into sustainable reality and build a better future for generations. Matrelli, we build potential.
Welcome to the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola. A saving instrument for future generations, aimed at maximizing capital returns and contributing to the country's economic growth. Established in 2012, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola pursues a global multi-asset strategy designed to generate long-term growth. This strategy is tailored to accommodate both stable and volatile market scenarios with expected volatility levels, remaining below benchmark stock portfolios. In addition to capital markets, the FSDEA also invests in alternative segments across the African continent, carefully balancing risk and return. By investing in Africa, the FSDEA seeks not only to maximize portfolio income, but also to contribute to the sustainable economic growth of the continent's economies, accelerating the economic transformation of the regions in which it operates. In this context, macroeconomic stability plays a key role in diversifying and expanding investments in the region by attracting and retaining capital. Maintaining moderate levels of exchange rate volatility is crucial for preserving portfolio value. In fulfilling its mandate to save future generations, the FSDEA invests not only to generate financial returns, but also to support the development of new markets and to bridge value chain gaps, thereby accelerating economic transformation and diversification. The FSDEA's 2024 to 2028 strategic plan prioritizes co-investments focusing on forestry sector, export-oriented agriculture, commodities, generic pharmaceutical, manufacturing, as well as the production of plant-based protein, animal protein, and fertilizers. These sectors are essential to addressing the continent's food security challenges, reducing imbalances in national health systems, and increasing agricultural productivity. With a strong focus on financial returns, the FSDEA primarily promotes equity participation and the mobilization of private capital through complementary equity and debt instruments as its preferred method for expanding its investment portfolio. The FSDEA positions itself as a strategic partner for foreign investments, not only by providing equity, but, for importantly, through its conveying power in risk mitigation. The 2024 to 2028 Alternative Investment Strategy seeks to align with the Angola Long-Term Strategy 2050, the National Development Plan 2023 to 2027, and the continent's priority Sustainable Development Goals. To ensure the achievement of the strategy's targets, continuous enhancements of internal workflows, due diligence processes, and risk assessment procedures are fundamental to the FSDEA's governance model. Visit our website at fundosoberano.ao to learn more about investment opportunities with the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Angola.
afternoon. Good afternoon. Boa tarde. Boa tarde one more time. Welcome to the plenary session on the Lobito Corridor, strengthening partnerships for Africa's infrastructure future. Before we get started here, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency, the President of Namibia, Prime Minister of Burundi, Prime Minister of Eswatini. It's a pleasure to have you all, and welcome to all of you. This is an exciting topic. It's sort of the subject of the day, and I don't want to delay any longer. My name is Nicholas Schneidman. I'm CEO of Schneidman & Associates. Let me just quickly introduce the panelists. To my left is Honorable Jose Massano, the Minister of Economy from the government of Angola. To his left is Connor Coleman, Head of Investment at U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. To his left is Mr. Heini Taib, who's founder of the Shelley Group. And going down the line is Adam Cortese, who is CEO of Sun Africa. And sitting next to Adam is Mr. Ziad Daoud, who is the founder and chief executive of AfriCell Group, one of our major sponsors. Thank you. Next to Ziad is Bill Killeen, the CEO of the Agro Corporation of America. Full disclosure, I've been working with Agro on and off for 2 decades. So if my questions seem unusually soft, you'll know why. And next to Bill is the Minister of Transport and Logistics from Zambia, Minister Kayala. So let's just jump into this. And Minister Massano, why don't I start with you? So we're here to discuss the Lobito Corridor. Angola has been at the forefront along with the DRC and Zambia. Tell us why the Lobito Corridor initiative is so important to Angola and what we as private sector can do to make it move faster.
Start by thanking you all for being here in the Uganda. It's a tremendous pleasure and honor. We are delighted to us for the next couple of days. And yes, the Lobito Corridor is a transformative project that we have in the country. But one has to say that the Lobito Corridor is not just about Angola. Angola is part of a corridor. We name the corridor, but at the end of the day, it's about connectivity. It's about sharing infrastructure to promote development in the countries. So we're talking about Angola, RDC, Zambia, but at the end of the day, we wanted to ensure that life is facilitated for those citizens living in this part of the country. At the same time, the chances that we have to go and promote economic development, because once we have that infrastructure that will enable us to go and connect, then we have the chances to share more between our citizens, developed all the potential that we have along the corridor of Lobito. So we keep on working together closely, as you know, with partners here in the continent, but also with US, European Union, also highly supportive of the initiative that we have along the corridor, and also want to take that opportunity to acknowledge it. So we need to move as fast as we possibly can, and this is what we are doing. Initially, once we have the concept of the corridor and start mobilizing interest from investors, not just public but also private investors. Now for us is to keep on and starting engaging ourselves on the infrastructure itself. So we have the corridor with the rail truck just connecting, but we need to keep on working on the infrastructure so that we can take the benefits of the corridor. Being on a logistic perspective, we have someone who mentioned here what we are doing to electrify the entire corridor. Because once we have that, the chances to produce along the corridor in a competitive manner, it will be also of interest for the private sector. So we keep now that the concept has been approved on how can we mobilize resources to carry on the infrastructure. In building that, it's bringing more and more investment, being public and private, to take full advantage of the corridor. So this is why it is so important for Angola, but also important for those countries that will be connected, and through that, the region as a whole, because we managed to do it successfully. It's Angola, it's Zanzibar, you see, but it's the entire continent that is more connected, it's more people take advantage, it's more goods and services being delivered for everyone. Also, from the international perspective, given that as Emil mentioned this morning, all the commitment that we have from other regions on Africa, stage on what we have as a potential natural resources, young people, etc., that we can join forces and take advantage of what we have here, not just for the region, but more, but at the same time, keep on ensure that those in the international community willing to be part of it also can take a share of it. So I would say, in a nutshell, yes, critical for Angola, critical for the region, but also critical for economic development as one is looking to direction that the world is taking place. So connectivity is the key, and if you take that part of it, even better.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I'll just share, last night I was talking to some of the folks from the Libido Atlantic Railway, and they were saying that trains are already running at 6 a week. They expect 14 a week, return copper for full wages. So it's clearly happening already. This is no abstract concept. Connor, let me come to you and ask about the DFC and what the DFC can do to strengthen regional connectivity and to de-risk investment opportunities so we can get more U.S. investment into what we're doing.
Thank you very much for hosting us at the U.S. Development Finance Corporation. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues that are doing so much for the continent of Africa overall. For those of you who don't know us as a U.S. Development Finance Corporation, we are the investment arm of the U.S. government focused on driving U.S. foreign policy and economic growth of our partner countries through a dual mandated strategy of strategic investment and economic development investment. We aim to be flexible capital providers, working up and down the capital structure with the goal of promoting private capital into these emerging markets. If we are doing our job correctly, we're really the bridge between the private sector and the local governments that we're investing in. Africa in particular is of extreme importance for this administration. Not only is Africa such an important region with immense potential, but it's already a massive geopolitical and economic actor overall. Us at the DFC, we have a portfolio of about $13 billion currently in Africa, which makes us our largest portion of our portfolio, and we're aiming to actively grow it overall. I'm really excited to join this panel to talk about the Libido corridor in particular, because I think this is a perfect example on how effective investment can really grow and advance the region overall. Our current projects across the corridor overall really show USG's commitment to both infrastructure investing and promote free trade flow in the region. Obviously, our flagship investment right now is the Libido corridor and our investment into refurbishing and upgrading the more than 1,300 kilometers of the rail. Once this is complete, this will help ease shipping time by 29 days, as well as help shipping costs decrease by more than 30%. In addition to this investment, though, it's extremely important when you're talking large infrastructure investments on the continent to think about this idea of packaging other important investments, whether that be in energy
groundwork for the next question, where you talked about how the DOC investments unlock other opportunities in other sectors. And that goes directly to you. You have 3 decades of experience here in Angola doing amazing work. And tell us, how do we take a project like the Lobito Corridor Initiative and make it a real catalyst for regional transformation?
Thank you very much. As you know, I'm working here in Angola 34 years, since 1991. Half of my life I'm living and breathing Africa every morning. We did a lot in Angola, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and I thought always how we can do some big project. So I look always how we can change the continent. Then I thought about the Lobito Corridor, that this project it belongs to governments. The state, United States invest, Angola, Congo DRC, and Zambia. But I'm asking myself, and I'm asking all of you, what about the 40 million for them? So I launched the platform for investors in the Lobito Corridor for $1 billion private projects only for the population. Agriculture, agro-industrial, pharmaceutical industrial, telecommunication, water, energy, vocational training, to promote the people. So I allocate $50 million for this platform. Angola Wealth Sovereign Fund allocate another $50 million. And now we are talking to Zambia, Pension Fund. Congo, and you also show very interest to participate and allocate also equity in this. So I believe that we need some around $200 to $300 million equity. Then we will raise debt mainly from you, my friend, and other entities in the United States, Europe, projected, I don't know, a few months maybe. It's in another kit, so.
Yeah, thank you. So it's worth noting that we started in this business.
Foundational infrastructure for all other infrastructure. If you want to construct optic fiber or power systems or water systems or whatever, you really do need quality roads and bridges to be able to do that. And what they do for those other projects is they bring the cost down because mobilization for those projects is much more predictable for the contractors. And when that's predictable, the contractors can keep the prices down a bit. So this is where we distilled it down, and we actually figured out that in sub-Saharan Africa you need right now, just with the existing roads, about 200,000 bridges. It sounds like a large number, but it's really not, because I look at the United States and we need 130,000 bridges right now in the United States. So 200,000 in sub-Saharan Africa, while it has less roads, geographically, it's a far larger area. It seems like an appropriate number. when you can take care of those bridges and replace them, of course, then commerce will be able to flow much more freely. The one thing I keep thinking about is that when you, again, compare the African continent to, say, whether it be the United States or China, Africa typically has about 30% less roads, 70% less roads than the United States and 90% less than China. That really creates a chokehold on the flow of commerce, and something I've often thought about, it also creates a chokehold on the new free trade agreement that's been signed. So somehow more roads are needed, bridges are requiring replacing, so that 200,000 bridges that I talked about earlier is actually a much greater number if you consider that you need to add more roadways to that. Now our focus over the years, as Whitney said, we've done now over 2,000 bridges. Roads. We felt that that was where the greatest impact could be achieved. One of our reasons for that is just simply, it was our belief that the greatest population numbers are in the rural districts. Probably 40 to 60% of the population of the continent is there. And we've achieved that. I could say out of those 2,000 bridges, almost every one of them are on rural roads. And the bridges that we typically do are the ones that, I say this actually very complimentary about ourselves, is that there are bridges that you cross and you might not even have recognized that you went over a bridge, but that bridge is vital, absolutely vital to the local commerce of the area and the people and the families that live there. The final thought I'll leave you with, Whitney, is just on modularity. ACRO pioneered the idea of prefabricated modular bridging. Back around 2000, the Federal Highway Administration of the United States started coining the phrase accelerated bridge construction. And it was something that we had been doing for years. And I'm a very big promoter of accelerated bridge construction. It produces bridges at a lower cost, it produces them more rapidly. You'll have a bridge constructed in a matter of weeks versus years for conventional construction. And what does that mean? That means that your commerce starts flowing sooner, revenues start flowing sooner, returns on investments on power plants or whatever, they start shortening. So I'm a big believer that modular bridging, whether it's concrete or steel, is going to be critical for replacing those 200,000 bridges and adding bridges going on into the future. And I'll leave it there.
Great, thanks, Bill. 200,000 bridges in Africa. It's a lot of work to do still ahead, but great job so far. Minister Tayali, let me ask you the same.
The Lobito Corridor is by far the most strategic infrastructure project that's going to be undertaken on the African continent. And the implications of construction of this particular corridor are immense. As you earlier heard in the presentations in the morning, we actually envision that this Lobito Corridor is going to connect the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. And so you may also have heard statistics about how there's a massive infrastructure gap on the African continent, estimated around $350 billion. Now, Africa trades the least with itself than it does with other blocs, the West, indeed, the East. And what would be the reason for that? It's very simple. There is no infrastructure connecting African nations. And we in Zambia, from the onset of the new administration which came into office in 2021, were very clear in our minds how through our economic diplomacy, not just with our neighbors, but with the rest of the world, we needed to push an agenda of inclusivity, of connectivity, where Zambia was going to be linked, being uniquely geographically located, surrounded by 8+2 neighbors. We realized this was a missing link. We do have a number of other corridors traversing the country. We do have the Lobito corridor, rather the Nakala corridor, the Beira corridor, the Welvis Bay, Ndola to Lubumbashi corridor, the Tazara corridor. And at the end of the day, when you mention corridors, you're talking about facilitation of trade. We must integrate our economies. We need to integrate our countries. Africa must begin to trade with itself. When my brother, Mr. Cortez, spoke about how there are only 2 countries in this world that are able to finance these sort of projects, indeed, that is true. But also the answer and the reason is very simple: affordable finance. There is an urgent need to revisit the global financial architecture. Finance on the African continent is extremely expensive, and that we are not able to afford such significant infrastructure developments. So we envision that the Lobito corridor will afford us an opportunity to be able to uplift the standard of living of our people. It's a very young population on the continent, so it's going to afford us the opportunity to create jobs. It's going to afford us, because we have learned from other corridors that have been developed in the country, such as the Tazara corridor, that there must be a focus on these corridors being economic. Therefore, you're not just focusing on rail development, but all other attendant multimodal transport facilities that must come with a particular corridor. But alongside that corridor, in order to entice the private sector, we have to make it worth their while that this corridor is going to guarantee a return on investments. And therefore, along the corridor must be development of agriculture, agribusinesses, value addition to the critical raw materials that are predominantly in the DRC as well as Zambia, crucial in reversing the adverse climate change effects. It's only by so doing that we realize this is going to be sustainable. Now, as a government, we obviously realize, and we've had to obviously learn pretty fast, we have to put in place policies that will make it possible and entice the private sector to come and participate. Issues such as open access on the rail, even the vertical separation. Government has got no business in doing business. And so the private sector, particularly our colleagues from the US, we must also give thanks to the administration, new administration in the US, because not even President Donald Trump has been able to say that this is not a worthwhile project. Just about 2 months ago, we did get an endorsement from the White House, from one of the top US president advisors. That shows you that this is pretty much the project of the future, and that there is definitely going to, not just in energy production, but also energy transmission, distribution, extremely crucial. We have brought about energy reforms in Zambia, for instance, where tariffs are now commercial, and that there must be open access, guaranteed. And these are some of the policies that we know are going to make, US-Africa business partnerships all the more important. But also, looking at your topic, strengthening partnerships for Africa's infrastructure. When you see the number of heads of states that attended this morning, and I would like to give, obviously, credit to Madam President from Namibia, who is still here with us, you can see that there's consensus amongst the leadership on the continent about how we must integrate in order for us to become competitive with the global north. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Minister Masana, let me turn to you, because this morning we heard from Secretary General Wamkele Mene about the African African Continental Free Trade area, which is going to be the largest in the world. Isn't the Lobito Corridor a stepping stone to realizing the common market of Africa?
Yes, absolutely. But So that you all remember that we are in Angola and that I speak Portuguese, I will just switch to Portuguese for that one, if you allow me. Mas sim, plenamente de acordo. O que nós temos com o corredor do Lobito é, de facto, mais uma infraestrutura que revela esta capacidade, ou esta necessidade, melhor, de integração. Foi aqui já referido que esta integração temos as infraestruturas, mas também precisamos de políticas económicas assertivas, com este propósito de irmos integrando as nossas economias e as nossas sociedades. Apesar de todas as semelhanças que temos, o nosso comércio é mais intenso com o exterior do continente do que entre países que compõem o continente africano. E o que temos com o corredor do Lobito é esta parceria forte entre nações africanas. Eu devo dizer que o corredor, e falamos muitas vezes de Angola, a RDC e a Zâmbia, mas é muito mais do que isso. Portanto, é uma infraestrutura de apoio ao desenvolvimento económico e social do continente africano. É uma infraestrutura que vai permitir dinamizar a vida económica do nosso continente, a integração do nosso continente, e por isso o que temos com a zona do comércio livre encontra também no corredor do Lobito uma das infraestruturas essenciais de apoio. Bom, o exercício, como referimos já, é de continuarmos a fazer o trabalho de mobilização de interesses, de meios, de termos do lado público as políticas assertivas, como referi, mas também termos a capacidade de continuarmos a atrair investimento privado para que rapidamente aquilo que chamamos de potencial possa ser de facto transformado em benefício da atividade económica do continente, em benefício do desenvolvimento económico e social dos nossos países. Portanto, é assim que estamos a olhar para o corredor, procurando tirar também grande benefício desta decisão tomada pelos nossos líderes de termos um mercado africano verdadeiramente integrado.
Great, thank you very much. That's very clear. Connor, the DFC has been a real driver of the Lobito corridor over the last several years. Clearly, you must be thinking about sort of what comes next. And how is the DFC thinking about the Lobito corridor as an investment model in Africa that might be able to scale investment elsewhere and enhance investor confidence in key African economic zones?
Absolutely. I think the Lobito corridor is the perfect example of effective U.S. government and African country partnership going forward. The investment thesis as a whole, I like to call pit to port. And unfortunately, I'm not clever enough to come up with that term. I have to give credit to my colleagues over at AFC who taught me that term in my meeting last month with them. But I think it's the perfect expression to what is needed when looking at investing on the continent. Not only are you focused on extraction for critical minerals and providing volume to the infrastructure that you're able to lay, but you also need to facilitate the transit out of the continent to the trading partners and promote free trade overall. So this idea of pit-to-port investment, these package investments, is crucial for what we're looking at the DFC. How can we facilitate this going forward, and how are we thinking about it? One, obviously, it's how we can be flexible capital providers and work up and down the capital structure from debt to equity to facilitate private sector involvement along every step of kind of the value chain. And then additionally, how can we be more effective partners to the local countries overall? How can we make sure that the local communities are benefiting from the investment, that dollars from the project are staying in the country and furthering the economic development that is happening there. So these active discussions and partnering with both the private sector and the local government to help facilitate a harmonious relationship overall is exactly kind of the go-forward strategy that we're focusing on at the DFC.
That's great, and that really points to an ongoing U.S. private sector and public-private partner presence here on the continent, which is terrific. Thank you for that. Haim, let me come to you. You recently announced the Lobito Corridor Impact Development Platform in partnership with Angola's Sovereign Wealth Fund. And spoiler alert, there's going to be a signing right after this, so please don't go away. But how does your approach differ from traditional investment models, and why is this moment unique for an initiative like this?
Thank you. Again, all the years that we work here in Angola and Africa in general, we are looking to improve life of people, communities, and countries. And why now? It's because I think it's the right time that the U.S. administration starting to look deeply to Africa. And this is the time that I think other countries in Europe have to look to Africa, come, invest together with us, let's make the change. And all of us have to remember, Africa not need money. Africa need partners that will come and invest together with them. And we are trying to improve the maximum that we can, but it's not enough. We need all of you to come to invest together with us in Lobito Corridor and in other projects, because Africa needs partners.
Yeah, great. Africa needs partners. And the world needs Africa as a partner. So thank you for that. Adam, we're sort of running out of time, so I'll ask you all to be brief here because I want to hear one more time from each of you. But how does Sun Africa plan to align its renewable energy projects with the corridor's broader goals? And what opportunities do you see for U.S. private sector investment in this initiative?
Sure. Well, I mean, the Lobito Corridor obviously is an expensive undertaking, so we've got to look at everything under the lens of productive use, right? And for the mini-grid project we're bringing across the 4 southern provinces, I think that we're providing opportunities for agricultural communities to aggregate cold storage, essentially primary processing to add value to their commodities. Things like what our AgroBridge are doing from a logistical perspective, being able to get those to the rail system then take it to the port for domestic and potentially international export is a very good thing. As far as, looking forward for the power sector, I think what we want to see is the inclusion of power-intensive industries like refining and manufacturing. Historically, here in Angola, it's been very difficult to bring power on an independent power producer basis simply because the tariff here is not cost reflective. But this works in the C&I space, right? And so this gives the opportunity for private investors to come in and supply electricity to these industrial endeavors. And hopefully that can also offset some of the tariffs to the local communities, which in turn then stimulates economic activity around those facilities.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
I think that's what Sun Africa looks to as the future here in Angola.
Okay, well, on that theme of looking at the future, Ziad, let me ask you, how do you envision the future? What is the Lobito Corridor going to look like in 10 years from now, in 2035, from a digital connectivity perspective?
We are the only American operator in the continent, and we're the only one who's operating in 2 countries, Angola and DRC, and we're the only one who has the possibility of covering all of the Lobito Corridor countries. We're the only one again using secure technology. So how we see it, I see it after being able to build a robust network and backbone with something as strategic as the Lobito Corridor Railways. This will help a lot developing all these communities across the corridor, plus countries trading with each other and communities dealing with each other. It would be taking small towns to become larger towns and even maybe major cities.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And along the same lines, Bill, ACRO is in the process of delivering 186 bridges to Angola. How do you see the bridges destined for the Lobito Corridor contributing to prosperity there?
Thanks, Eugene. Thanks, Whitney. First of all, as Whitney just said, we're supplying 186 bridges for the corridor to improve the flow of traffic each way. The we is ACRO, and then we have our partner, Condoril, who will be actually constructing the bridges. But when you look at the numbers, 80% of product, I'll say, 80% of product still travels by truck. And so these bridges will support the movement of ore or agricultural products or manufactured products going to railheads or regional sales points. And that's one of the reasons earlier why I said we've had such a focus on the rural roads, trying to have greater connectivity for the regional side of things. The bridges will also help with the construction of the Zambia Spur, because it will, facilitate the mobilization of the equipment into that area and hopefully assist with controlling the cost of it. And I think it will also help with shipping costs. What I've witnessed, and something I remember witnessing, and what surprised me was they're still saying that same number. A lot of that has to do with bridges and roads not being in a good enough condition. So I feel that these bridges will be improving the roads and allow the easier flow of the trucks or traffic that needs to be on those byways. The other thing I'll just say is the construction of the bridges themselves actually create jobs, immediate jobs in the construction. And then we train those individuals so that they can go off into the future and build other bridges if they'd like. On top of that, the bridges become the seed. I often think of them as the tool that the local people use to create opportunity, to create jobs. And it's been shown that when you improve the roads and bridges, jobs grow. And something that I came across recently that I wasn't so aware of was that when you have jobs combined with reasonably close electrification, that it actually supercharges the number of jobs that are created for people. And, the numbers were astounding, that's all I could say. The 24% increase in job opportunities when electrification and roads and bridges are in relatively good shape and accessible. So I think I'll just leave it there because I know we're short.
Yeah, that's terrific. And Mr. Minister, let me give you the last word. We have to be brief, but what's the takeaway? What's the final message that everybody should take from this conversation?
Thank you very much. Allow me to quote award winner Adesina: "Don't follow the sentiments, follow the data." 60% global arable land. 1.3 billion people. 4.3 trillion GDP. Africa is a place to be. Lobito Corridor is the future.
Yeah, great. Thank you all. Please give the panelists a round of applause. And thank you all for your attention. Great.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat. Before we welcome the President of DRC, we will witness a signing. So if you can kindly take your seat, please. Thank you. Please take your seat so we can usher in the President of DRC. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat. Thank you. As you take your seat, I would like to invite Mr. Antonio Enriquez, the MC for the signing of the MOU between Hydrolink and Mitreli. Mr. Antonio Enriquez. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today we'll witness the signing of the first 3 strategic memorandums of understanding that represent a major step forward in regional energy cooperation and US-Africa commercial engagement. These agreements are the foundation of a transformative cross-border energy project, a 1,150 kilometers high voltage transmission line connecting Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The project, estimated to cost $1.5 billion, is being led by Hydrolink, a US-based energy investor in partnership with the government of Angola, and Mitreli Group, which is one of the major investors in Hydrolink. Its purpose is to expand clean and reliable electricity access to industrial, mining, and rural areas in Angola and DRC, with a particular focus on unlocking the economic potential of critical mineral reserves. In doing so, Hydrolink directly supports the strategic priorities of the United States and Africa, advancing infrastructure, strengthening regional value chains, and enabling sustainable growth. The first agreement to be signed today between Hydrolink and Mitreli Group, one of Angola's most experienced infrastructure and sustainable development partners, with several decades of proven delivery capabilities across large-scale energy and national development projects. Mitreli brings deep experience working in close collaboration with governments to design and implement solutions that address national priorities. These partnerships ensure strong technical implementation, local integration, and long-term operational sustainability. The second agreement to be signed tomorrow between Hydrolink and the government of Angola. This MOU formalizes Angola's leadership role in the initiative and reflects the country's commitment to building domestic and regional infrastructure that fuels trade and improves living standards, enabling long-term economic development. The Angolan government vision and its facilitation of this project have been instrumental to bring Hydrolink partners together. These agreements mark the launch of a strategic partnership between the power economic activities, create jobs, and foster regional cooperation. It is an important example of how American investment, African government leadership, and long-term partnership can work together and drive meaningful impact. So the third one will be between Angola Sovereign Wealth Fund and Haim Taib. This agreement marks a significant step forward to sustainable, inclusive developments across Angola through the DRC and into Zambia. The two sides will sign the official $1 billion Lobito Corridor Impact Development Platform, and the first 100 million commitment, 50 million each to accelerate Africa's next phase of industrial and human development across the Lobito Corridor. So please, Mr. Paul Hinks and Mr. Haim Taib for the signature of the first one. So my apologies, is actually the chairman, the CEO of Mitrelli Group, Mr. Rodrigo. Let's give them a round of applause. Please join me now in welcoming Mr. Haim Taib and Dr. Armando Manuel, Chairman of the Angolan Sovereign Fund, to the signing table. Give me a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. With this, we have brought to an end to this ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Please take your seat so we can welcome the President of the DRC and start the Lobito II plenary. Thank you. Thank you. Please take your seat. Thank you. I would like to invite the moderator of this session, the second Lobito plenary, to kindly come on stage. Ms. Jennifer Sabasaja. Thank you. And friends from the media, if you can please make way so we can welcome the President. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as we continue with part 2 of the afternoon's plenary. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request for you to take your seats so we can continue with part 2 of the panel. Please, take your seats. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to invite Ms. Jennifer Sabasaja of Bloomberg to the stage.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to apologize for the delay. There was some confusion about this upcoming session, but I have been given the go-ahead to get things going now. Again, I'm Jennifer Zabasaja. I'm Chief Africa Correspondent and anchor for Bloomberg Television, and we're also going to build on the conversation around the Lobito corridor. So I would like to welcome up to the stage our panelists for the session. First of all, Samaila Zubairu, President and CEO of the Africa Finance Corporation. We also have Troy Fattel, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs. Thank you. Mifekei Makai, CEO for Africa on Cobalt Metals, with Cobalt Metals. Brian Kelly, the CEO for Anzana Electric Group, and Andre Figueira, partner for DLA Piper Africa. And just finally joining us on the stage, the Vice President of Transport for the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that is Jean-Pierre Bemba. Please welcome everybody to the stage.
Hello.
So it is another packed panel that we have. Hopefully, yeah, whatever you want. Minister of Transport is representing His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi, who is not able to join us right now. Minister, maybe we start with you because we were listening to the previous panel talking about some of the promise of the Lobito corridor, and a lot of that, the building on top of the promises hinges on the DRC. Maybe from your perspective, talk to us about what the state has committed to and is willing to commit to at this point. No? Maybe we can start with, as you get your headset up and running, Samaila, maybe we can start with you. Talk to us about the commitments that the AFC has been able to actually receive, what has been mobilized, what has been dispersed, in terms of funding.
Good afternoon or good evening now. Thanks for the opportunity to be here in Luanda again to discuss the Lobito corridor, a very important project for Africa and I would say the rest of the world as well. I think it would be good to just start with really the progress that we have made on the project. I'll just give just a quick update. I think that we've been able to significantly advance all the technical studies, and we're due to complete them by the end of this month. The environmental social impact assessment studies should be done by the end of July, with the resettlement action plan also done by August. We hope to start the entire EPC process by August, and we hope that by January next year we should have finalized that. We are on track to get to financial close by the end of third quarter of next year, early Q4 next year, let's say Q4 next year. And we hope to break ground by Q4 next year. So in terms of funding, we've received mainly funds from our development partners, like the European Commission has advanced about $2 million to support the project development that we're doing. We have commitments. I'm sure you heard the announcement this morning by the African Development Bank of $500 million in viability gap funding for the project. Last week, we signed with the Italian government for $250 million of funding, which has already been disbursed. We continue to advance things like the mining, the mining works. That's significantly advanced. We hope to complete that by next year as well. So I would say in general that we're on track. All the partners are aligned. We continue to thank them for their significant confidence and support in our role to develop the project.
Thank you for that. Ambassador Futrell, if it's okay to call you that. Can you give us the U.S. commitment? Because Samaila just walked us through some of the promises that have been made. Financially, what is the U.S.'s commitment? And also, what does that look like practically moving forward in your eyes?
Well, look, the great value of the way this model has worked is that having our Development Finance Corporation and our Exim Bank, having them engaged early on, allowed to, just their very presence allowed for some de-risking in perception. And it attracted lots of other participants, including pretty much everybody here on this panel. Nothing incentivizes like success. And so the idea of having this as a model of bringing together blended finance, you don't need to go find one suitor who can provide all the finance. You can spread that out and have this blended finance and make things work. We established the DFC honestly with the idea that here's another entity that can finance projects. But what we found is as a partner and as a participant working with all of the other tools available, including other countries, other development institutions, having all this working together actually makes for a much, much stronger commitment. And it also allows us to then spread to more places. And to me, this is just a model. It can be used over and over again all over the world and all over Africa.
So what is the U.S.'s commitment? Back to my question again. What is the U.S. willing to say at this point that they are grounded in this project? How much are they grounded in this project?
Oh, if you're talking about political commitment, we are absolutely 100% in on this. This is the best thing we're doing in Africa right now, and that's why we see it as the model that we would follow everywhere else.
And financially?
Yeah, well, I mean, right off the bat, we had DFC on the last panel, but right off the bat, I think it was 150 million from that. Then there's been various components of it because it's not just a port, it's not just a railroad, but we're up on $1 billion or so when it comes to all the different types of components.
Minister, thank you for that, Ambassador. Minister, can you talk about the commitment from the DRC's perspective? Because we've now just gotten a few of the stakeholders and we have more on the panel. But talk about what the DRC is willing to commit to with this corridor and this project at this point.
Merci. Le corridor de Lobito est un projet qui est structurant. Ce n'est pas simplement un chemin de fer qui va passer du sud-est du pays jusqu'au niveau de l'océan Atlantique. C'est un projet qui amène la Zambie, la RDC et l'Angola à pouvoir se structurer. Ça va permettre l'exportation, comme vous savez, d'un nombre important. On parle aujourd'hui, dès le début de l'opération, ça va permettre d'évacuer en moyenne 3 millions de tonnes de minerais par an. Vous savez que dans les exportations actuelles sur les minerais, 65% de nos revenus viennent du cuivre et 25% plus ou moins, 15 à 25% viennent du cobalt. Ce couloir donc de Lobito va permettre d'abord, de réduire les prix de transport au niveau de l'exportation et également de réduire aussi le temps de plus ou moins une semaine. Par rapport aux couloirs traditionnels qui sont les couloirs sur Durban, au départ de Kolwezi, où c'est sur la zone minière, sur la Tanzanie également, Dar es Salaam ou sur Bira au niveau de Mozambique. Ça va donc permettre de pouvoir activer plus rapidement et permettre l'évacuation. Vous savez que Kolwezi va produire de plus en plus de minerais, de plus en plus d'entreprises augmentent leur production et il nous faut trouver une solution pour l'évacuation. Et je pense que l'investissement qui a été fait par l'Angola déjà, de Lobito jusqu'à Dilolo, aujourd'hui nous sommes assez avancés, c'est-à-dire que les études de faisabilité sont déjà réalisées. Nous sommes en partenariat très sérieux avec tant l'Union européenne directement qu'avec les États-Unis là-dessus. Nous avons déjà le financement de plus de 75% du financement. Nous avons déjà les accords au niveau d'une banque européenne de premier ordre. Et là-dessus, je sais qu'au niveau des États-Unis, au niveau de USAID, il y avait également une promesse, mais maintenant nous sommes en train de voir avec d'autres structures qui sont le DFC, exemple que vous avez. Je sais que la Banque mondiale aussi est intéressée dans le cadre du financement des infrastructures. Parce que nous voulons aller dans un système de PPP, de partenariat public-privé, lequel la structure d'investissement, l'État conçoit par un prêt à construire la structure du chemin de fer, mais que nous sommes prêts à pouvoir mettre en place une concession après des appels d'offres pour tout ce qui concerne l'exploitation. Bien sûr, autour de ce corridor, il va y avoir des investissements, tant dans les PME qu'au niveau donc, des sociétés de services, comme également les télécommunications avec la fibre optique qui va passer. C'est un projet également qui fait attention pour l'émission la diminution de l'empreinte carbone aussi. Ça, c'est très important au niveau de l'environnement, pour la préservation à notre niveau. Chez nous, ça va traverser trois grandes provinces au niveau du pays. Et nous pensons que c'est une solution, en tout cas, qui va permettre non simplement la création d'emplois chez nous, mais certainement la richesse également tout le long de ce corridor.
Will we see more of the state-owned rails and mines maybe turn to private investors in order to expedite some of these changes that you're looking for?
No translation. Can you repeat, please?
Will we see some of the state-owned mines, because they've traditionally, historically been owned by the state, turned over to private investors, some of which are potentially sitting here on the stage? Will we see more privatization potentially happening to expedite some of these changes?
Bien sûr, ce projet fait appel à tous les investisseurs, les grands investisseurs, notamment au niveau de la construction de ce rail, qui est également au niveau de ceux qui veulent investir dans les PME tout le long, je veux dire, de ce rail. Ce que nous cherchons également au niveau de la RDC également, ce sont les industries de transformation au lieu des industries extractives uniquement. Ça, c'est quelque chose qui est important, mais je veux dire par là que tout ce qui est investisseur sérieux qui voudrait venir au niveau de la RDC, c'est le moment. Je veux dire, la RDC, en tout cas, c'est le pays qu'il faut être aujourd'hui pour l'investissement. Ça, c'est quelque chose que ce soit au niveau minier, que ce soit au niveau agricole, je pense que c'est le moment de venir investir et ceux qui arriveront les premiers seront bien sûr les premiers servis aussi.
Thank you. Thank you. And that leads me to Mfikeyi, as Cobalt Africa CEO. Can you speak about your commitment along the corridor? We were just hearing from the minister about hopefully getting more private investors coming on board. Why is this important for Cobalt to be a part of this project?
Thank you. It's really fundamental, not only for Cobalt, but any US company entering this part of Africa. There's so many opportunities that abound, and we are seeing a lot of coordination, and that's absolutely fantastic. We are one of the most advanced mineral exploration companies in the world, and our strategy is to digitize, explore, and develop. We can't deny that we live in a 21st century where data is very important. And with data, we need digital infrastructure that goes hand in hand with physical infrastructure. So some of the things we've done on the Zambian side, and we want to coordinate with other African governments, is to motivate, as the private sector, to make sure that information, geological information, is made public, because that attracts investments. we are able to look at things and accelerate some of these developments like the Lobito corridor. There are a lot of mines that are going to anchor that corridor and put offtake onto that corridor, but also opportunities for US imports to come into this part of the region because you're going to have a booming population of people growing at an average of 3% between Zambia, DRC, and Angola. The average growth rate in the population is 3%. Globally, we're at 0.9%. So this group, this demographic, will more than double in about 20 years. And all of that lays out opportunities for energy, for ICT, for housing, for construction. So if we're able to unlock value by having more exploration projects, which is the space where we play, in Zambia, we've got the Mingomba project, a place that was explored for about 70 years, but in 4 years, we unlocked a high value, 5% copper asset. We want to replicate that in the DRC, where we've entered and we're working well with the government there. We want to replicate that if we enter Angola or any other African jurisdictions. Everybody knows that exploration funding is generally low around the world, so if we're going to seed pipeline projects that will drive infrastructure for Africa, everyone is talking about industrializing Africa. Well, we need the raw materials to industrialize Africa, and partnering with the US government, US companies to unlock that value is really, really important. I'll use one simple example. In 1956, the US passed their Federal Aid Highway Act that connected coast to coast 41,000 kilometers of road and rail from a place that was really disconnected. We're not doing rocket science here, we are replicating that, and they picked that from the German Autobahn. So if we can connect Tanzania through to Angola, we are touching the three countries in many different ways, and it's seeded by mining exploration projects to unlock value for our African countries.
Is that the same experience you've had, Brian? I mean, you're in a different industry, but can you speak to the electrification element of it and how that potentially is going to be expanded and explored along this corridor? Brian? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, they're interconnected. I think so I lead a company called Anzana Electric Group. We're present in 7 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, including in particular Zambia in the Lobito corridor. We've been developing, we've owned a small utility in the upper northwest corner of Zambia in the middle of the Lobito corridor rail line territory, or the proposed greenfield rail, in the middle of the area where mining is going to occur. Electricity is a precursor to mining. It's also a precursor to other forms of development. And so if you can unlock mining activity, but also unlock the economic opportunity of the people that live around the mines for things like agribusiness or just participating in the mining economy, then you can really drive economic growth and make lasting impact. So we've seen this across the corridor. We're also from Tanzania over to Zambia and becoming part of DRC. But I think the key is that if you can bring all of these partnerships together, it starts with that urgency from government through partnership, funded by other institutions that are able to take the risks that are not purely commercial, and then layered with the private sector speed, and you get an outcome that can truly benefit the host communities, can truly make all of the investments that are going to happen along the corridor work together to create a virtuous cycle of growth. I think if you miss electricity, you miss most of those opportunities, and I think that's why it's been very helpful for us to know that these other projects are happening. This utility in Northwest Zambia has been there since 2007, and we've seen the growth that's capable with just electricity. The imagination that we could have around the expansion with rail, with additional mining, and with agribusiness, it's great for a utility provider, but most importantly, it's great for the countries that we serve as an electric utility.
Thank you, Brian. Key to a lot of this is public-private partnerships, Andre, and I'd like you to jump in as the only attorney on the panel, if you will. The details, what are still some of the gaps that exist in ensuring that this works? It all sounds great, but when you put pen to paper, are we there yet?
First of all, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here. It's such an amazing panel and such an amazing summit. First and foremost, DLA Piper is a global law firm that has around 22 offices around here in Africa, and 3 of them are in the Lobito Corridor. We are deeply involved here in Angola since the beginning, since inception, first with the concession of the Lobito, of the Lobito port for Africa Global Logistics, afterwards in the lender side for Africa exporting import in the amount of 175 million, and more recently for the World Bank in the creation of a mechanism to develop PPPs. And this is the key solution, I believe. It's extremely important for the private investor to have a profitable project. It's extremely important for the financiers or the financing entity to have a bankable project. But it's also extremely important for the public to have a project that safeguards the community and that gives back to the community. This is essential. In Angola, for instance, we have a very good example, and I have to give my congratulations to the Ministry of Transport, Mr. Ricardo Abreu, because he's done an example, it's an outstanding work in the last few years. 4 years ago, you didn't have the number of such huge logistic players that you have today. Today in Angola, you have the largest companies here in Angola. And so he's done an exceptional work in terms of concessions. Now I think we have to go on to the next level, because PPPs, there's a risk sharing involved, and this is key. And so therefore, I truly agree with all of my colleagues. I think it's extremely important to have a strong PPP law and a strong, I would say, across all 4 countries, because it will be the backbone of this infrastructure.
Do we have that yet, Samaila? Do we have what Andre was talking about, a strong PPP structure between all 4 countries at this point, along the corridor? Are you confident in where that's at?
Yes, we do. Actually, for us to be able to move from, I would say, an MOU in November of 2023 to sign concession agreements in September of 2024 means that we have very strong, tested, public-private partnership frameworks in both countries. And moreover, we've been able to proceed to an intergovernmental agreement between the governments of Angola and the governments of Zambia, all along that path. So I would say in general that we are making good progress, and we are also continuing to engage, with the government along the corridor on how to deepen the partnership that exists, how to make this an opportunity for a broader base of users. So most people think that this project is just going to be for mining. No, there's a lot of agricultural value chains to be unlocked. There's a lot of simple logistics of moving things like fuel and food and several goods and services, within the various economies to the port. That's ongoing. And there's, of course, that there's been significant progress on peace talks now between DRC and Rwanda. And to underpin that will be more, I would say, important infrastructure similar to the Lobito Corridor in both countries. And one of the key initiatives is the SNCC line to Kolwezi. That's also going to improve traffic on the Lobito Atlantic Rail. So that's an ongoing conversation now, between the U.S. government and I think the government of DRC and other partners. We've been approached, to provide support for that, and we're happy to provide that support. There are other projects like the special economic zones in Kin-Malabo, in Bugesera, all of which speak to the existence of strong PPP laws. So I would say that the regulatory framework exists. It's going to be refined with examples of actual projects because, what is important, is not the lack of ambition, but the importance of delivery. And which is why we are really focused on supporting governments, working with governments to ensure that we can improve execution at scale across the continent. We have to demonstrate that we can move from potential to reality by demonstrating, the examples of progress that create jobs, that integrate economies, and that will be the foundation for the prosperity that we all seek. So talking about all the conversations we've had today, people are all talking about, I would say, potential, but what we need to be talking more about now is execution. What's required for us to execute at scale? What conditions do we need to execute at scale? And I think that the only way to do that is to do it, learn from what you have done, and then improve as you go.
Troy, I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, first off, it was just, I was just thrilled to hear the good minister mention the public-private partnership to start with, and then, of course, the comments that the previous two speakers both said. It's important to realize that in a public-private partnership, that they're not blurring the distinction between the two. They complement one another. There are basic functions of the state that we don't want the private sector to do. And so, for example, when we talk about a railroad, in a country where 70% of the national income comes from mining, but 70% of the people are involved in agriculture, you can't have the infrastructure completely, a purely financial decision would have all the infrastructure completely dedicated to the mine. But you can't have any reasonable, sustainable development that way. And so the partnership is discovering what is needed to be able to create the infrastructure, to support that as it be paid for by the private sector, but still allows the state to conduct its basic business. And that's what I think we're seeing here, and we're seeing all the people involved have agreed on that. And frankly, that's what makes a public-private partnership a success. And frankly, I'm just thrilled to hear what everything I'm hearing from everyone on this panel.
Can you speak to, because again, this goes back to making all of this work, Troy, Ambassador Futrell, the negotiations that are happening with the US and some of these host countries as it pertains to security and being able to, again, guarantee that this is a success. Where is that at? Because that's, again, a bit of the corridor is a bit of an anchor to what this could be across the continent, as Samaila was saying, but a lot of it will hinge on security and conflict not being in the picture. Can you talk from the US perspective?
Honestly, that wouldn't play a role if the project wasn't itself economically viable. You can't use the security to make something happen if it's not economically viable. Then it just becomes a vanity project. So it's an important way to get people's attention. It's an important way to look. But when we look, for example, at what's happening in Eastern DRC and the agreement that was initialed last week and we think will be signed this week, the idea of bringing forward a regional economic integration framework was the real pull factor between the two parties that were negotiating. And what both parties said is, nobody's ever approached it this way before. And so it's a key catalyst, but both sides have to actually benefit. And making that clear was what was the actual root of the agreement that we reached last week.
Minister, can you comment on that?
Yes, let me try with my bad English. I want to confirm what our friend from USA said, that a pre-accord, because our expert has signed a protocol of accord between our Minister of Foreign Affairs. We sign it. But we want to thank America for the intervention that they did to link the two countries, because you should know that here in Angola, that's where we started the negotiation. And normally, if one of the parties, Rwanda, didn't fail to come on the 15th of December, we shouldn't be very far on this peace accord. But I think that with the intervention with the USA, we have hope. And what President Trump told recently, I read it yesterday, that normally the 27th of this month, we should sign an accord. I don't know if I'm wrong about that one. But let me come back with the Lobito corridor. The Lobito corridor, at the end of the process, it will be able to link the Atlantic Ocean with the Indian Ocean. How? When we will reach Kolwezi, we have a town called Sakanya that you know. From Sakanya, we can link Zambia, Ndola. And from Ndola, we can go to Dar es Salaam road. And from Dar es Salaam, we are in the India Ocean. That's what I say that it is important that this Lobito corridor is a link, a road between the two oceans. And that's when I say that he has a good future in the perspective of linking and integration inside Africa, regional integration about economic regional integration in Africa also.
Is peace possible along the corridor?
I think that to get this corridor successful, we need peace. That is absolutely important. And really we hope and we expect that with the power, political power of America, then you will, I will say, impose the peace. Because the people in Congo deserve a peace, because now we cannot develop even agriculture. How do you want to develop agriculture if you have soldiers running in the campaign? So, of course, that this peace is absolutely necessary. And we're expecting a lot of investors from America, from wherever, Europe also, because they're very interesting about this project. But we need absolutely the peace. And everybody must understand that peace, development without peace, does mean that he has no future.
Oh, sure.
And it doesn't have a meaning.
I just wanted to follow on one thing the minister said. He mentions Kolwezi. 25 years ago, I stood in Kolwezi and thought, this is not the end of the line. This should be the center. And so as Lobito builds in, yes, it'll connect south to this, but to me, it's also hugely important to continue north and east. I want to hit the lake and facilitate barge traffic. I want to connect with in Tanganyika province and get up to the Kivus. This is what's going to provide long-term stability and opportunity there. Again, Kolwezi is not the end, it's the center.
I also want to add a point. So, if you look at the rail network in Africa, it's truly not integrated. Yeah. And this Lobito corridor and all the additional spurs that we'll need to build to create that link is so important. So not just that do we need to link Kolwezi, there's several other projects that needs to be linked to ensure that we have a network that allows for trade to happen within the continent. Because the big challenge we have now is that all the lines are disconnected. So we need to find a way to connect them, which is why this is so important, and that we quickly advance, as we have planned, to ensure that we can execute and demonstrate that it is possible. Because once people see a live example, then it can be built upon.
Yes, Minister.
Let me also tell you that we are developing another corridor in DRC. We call the Central Corridor. Starting from Dar es Salaam to Bujumbura, Uvira, which is in DRC, and Kindu in the center of the country. So you can imagine that from Lobito, you can reach through that all-way channel up to the central of Congo, which is Kindu. And Kindu, if we cross the river Congo, then we can reach Kisangani. So this is the second corridor now that between Burundi, Tanzania, and Congo, we are developing on the same way. At the moment, we have taken a company, we are doing the physical study, and I think that when it's finished, that we have already a plan with the African Development Bank for financing this project also.
Thank you for that. Ms. Akei, I wanted you to jump in. The minister said there's no development without peace. Can you talk about the concerns that you have right now? Because you did say that you are committed to this corridor and to this project, but what is still missing? What still concerns you, potentially?
I'll start with the commitment. Sometime last year, Cobalt signed an MOU with our colleagues at the African Finance Corporation to offload our offtake onto the Lobito corridor. And to reiterate that the corridor doesn't take away the fact that there are other corridors. We need the competition within the continent so we can boost intra-African trade. So I am happy to hear that we're talking about other countries as well within the region, because everyone's success is linked to our own success here. In terms of concern, and I'll speak here as an African, I was having a good joke about it with Andre. Road and rail, fantastic. Air travel is also key. I left my house Saturday at 11 a.m. I got to Luanda at 4 a.m., 17 hours later, and I'm from the neighboring country. And my dear Andre flew straight from Lisbon within 7 hours, had some tea, took a nap, and I still wasn't here.
You had a tough trip.
Yeah, so those concerns me. Let's also start thinking of really regional connectivity between Kinshasa, Luanda, Lobito, Ndola, Dar es Salaam, Dodoma. I mean, there's also opportunities. And if we continue to unlock these projects, I'm in mineral exploration and mine development, there should be cases to start considering airport infrastructure. The financing risk premiums should start falling. We have to be deliberate about that. So that's really, really key. The second point is around really structured multilingualism policies for the future generations coming after us. English is a common language across the EU, even though there are not a lot of Englishmen, literally anymore. Within here, we have French, English, Swahili, Portuguese. If we're systematic about learning it, and using it for trade down to the SME level, not for us here who can speak maybe a few languages and understand each other, but for the people who will be trading. The SMEs are the ones that carry the economies of these countries. How do we enable that education for people across the borders to use the African Free Trade Continental Agreement to trade? Every time there's a pandemic or an epidemic, we are excellent at communicating healthcare down to the grassroots. How do we communicate the AFCTA down to the grassroots so people can trade? My father's people come from the eastern side of the Angola-Zambia border, from Moshiko, same group of people, the Gangela. On Zambia, they are the Luvale. Yet we can't move freely. So those are concerns that should be discussed at policy level. How do I translate it to my stakeholders who are communities where I'm developing a mine? How do they get access to this and not just ourselves putting things on the rail? Movement of goods and people, and just translators and interpreters down to an average SME in Africa. That's where there's going to be a huge base and opportunity. Back to that population, 200 million people, Atlantic to Indian Ocean. Just through those 8 provinces, it's about 20 to 30 million people directly in those provinces. They will form clusters, we'll have new towns, new infrastructure. We think of all of that, even though we're just in exploration. That's where the opportunity lies.
Are those some of the questions? Yeah. 17 hours later. Are those some of the questions that you're getting from stakeholders? What else are they asking you when you come to the table and you talk about some of the progress that you've seen?
Obviously, mining is a sensitive topic. It's polarizing. We need to integrate our communities and the need to take care of the environment. That is a value of our company. Even though we're an explorer and developing, we need to unlock value in protecting our forests, protecting the people who live in those areas, and they must tap into the benefits of these huge investments coming in. We cannot develop them in isolation like 50 to 100 years ago. We cannot put big fences and keep communities out. We need to integrate. Those are key things for me, who's in the mining sector, to think about.
Brian, can I pose the same question to you? What are some of the questions that you're getting from stakeholders as you continue to expand your operations in this region, in particular along the corridor?
Sure. Well, it's good to hear about the second corridor, because we're also quite active in that corridor by being an electrification partner of Burundi. But back to the Lobito corridor, I mean, I think what we're finding is that electrification in our business has typically been done by the public sector actors, and that has typically been fairly ineffective in this region. The electrification rates are very low. There has been this mindset that the public sector has access to public funds in the electricity space. The public sector has access to public funds, which are subsidized and cheap, and the private sector has access to private capital. And that makes projects relatively expensive. So what's happened is to say, private sector, Your job is to do generation because that's the only thing that can be helpful, and the public sector is responsible for electrification. That hasn't worked, and everyone's starting to realize that everything needs to move a lot faster. So there are a number of partnerships, but another partnership that hasn't been mentioned is the Mission 300 partnership between the African Development Bank and the World Bank that's intended to electrify 300 million people by 2030. The only way to do that is by bringing all the stakeholders together and say that the public funds can be available for private-led projects as long as they serve the public benefit and you find the right structure, whether it's a PPP or a joint venture. And then you work with an urgency that only the private sector has. So we signed an agreement with the government of Burundi to electrify 1.4 million households, which is 9 million people. It's a public-private partnership about 18 months ago, and we're 2 months away from starting construction. That's a pretty quick speed. Now in Zambia, we signed an MOU in March to electrify all of the Lobito corridor, which would be about a $300 million investment for 2 million people, and I mean all of the Lobito corridor in Zambia. There are other countries, of course. But we intend to start construction on that in January. And the reason is that there are forms of capital available and government stakeholders that see the urgency to get these projects off the ground because development is behind, and development of the electricity sector has to come probably first in order to see that household development at the household level starts to increase the livelihoods, improve the livelihoods, and we're seeing support from the U.S. government, from lots of multilateral institutions. It is possible to bring these sides together to achieve the outcome of affordable, reliable energy for all of the people, not just people in urban areas, but people in rural areas that will then attract investment in manufacturing and transformation that creates jobs, that creates livelihoods, that creates outcomes that we care about.
Thanks so much for that. Before I give one last question to the group, Andre, I wanted you to weigh in because we were talking about other examples globally, maybe that could be used to influence the progress along the corridor or not. Can you talk to us about your perspective on that?
I truly think that this is a global project. It's an example for the world, it's an example for other corridors, it's an example for everyone, to be honest. And when we select a PPP project, there needs to be very well done feasibility studies. The people and the local communities need to be taken into consideration. There needs to be protection for the local content, transfer of knowledge, and this is why I believe this project is an example, because it has been happening. This has been happening. However, the next few steps, the next projects are key for the development. Not only in mining, which is of course essential, but health, education, tech. Tech is fundamental at this point. And all these projects need to be well sustained, need to be very transparent, need to follow strict rules, strict procedures, and need to have tender processes, clean, clear for everyone and for the local communities. That's my point of view.
Thank you. Yeah, FK.
I think just to complement Brian's point on electrification, we're in the space for particularly critical minerals, your copper, lithium, cobalt, nickel. To replace the aging infrastructure and the new infrastructure needed to get to these communities, unit costs of production need to go down to make these projects feasible, to Andre's point. So that part of the value chain at the source of exploration requires us to explore more, to find better quality deposits, to lower the unit costs of production so we lessen our impact on the environment. So we come out of this cycle where we're, battling to say the projects are too expensive, they're not feasible. The materials need to be there, and we know that Africa has a lot of opportunities for exploration, but we need to be systematic about it. Back to my point about digitizing data, it belongs to the nations of these countries, but allows people to access it, scientists, innovators. We are using artificial intelligence to move quickly, and that's how we unlock value in Zambia in a short period. We want to replicate that. We don't want it to be stuck in one country. We want to do that in the DRC. We want to do it wherever we go. So that's really key, that these are the minerals that will drive electrification. Brian's projects needs these for us to have renewable, clean energy projects, because with access to energy, productivity goes up. Everybody knows Zambia has a power crisis, yet is a copper producer. It goes against itself.
And thank you so much for that. Before we go, I want to ask everyone one question, and I want it to be quick because we don't have that much time. The last session talked about the Lobito corridor, I think in 10 years is what they said. But Andre, to your point, the next steps are key. So I want to know, what's your hope in the next year for progress on the corridor?
The next step for us in September, we should issue the feasibility study. Should end. Then we launch the tender in November for the infrastructure. And then we'll start talking about the PPP, also partenariat, to look for now the company will exploit, the infrastructure of the train. So that is the next step for us. So we expect that the next probably 3 years, this project will end, will be finished, and will be a reality.
Thank you. Samaila?
So I think that what we need to do right now is just to create the conditions that make the change we seek inevitable. And we do that by engaging in the various countries, creating focus group on how to build the customer base, understand what is required for them to be successful, and make sure that they have what they need for success. Because this has to go beyond just the infrastructure. It has to be, what are the value chains that we create, that will create jobs for our people? How are we ensuring that we're creating millions of jobs along this corridor? Jobs for the agricultural value chain, jobs for ecotourism, jobs for the battery minerals value chain, jobs for all the agro-allied industries that we know needs to exist there. And how are we working with partners that have expressed their commitment to support? So last week in Rome, the EU Global Gateway affirmed their continued support for the project. They indicated that they are willing to engage with the governments along the corridor, for what they need to be successful. So it's engaging them, working with them to ensure that we provide the conditions they need to support the project.
Thank you so much. Ambassador?
Everything committed, signed, and approved to get us to Kolwezi.
We'll wait for him to do that. Ms. Kay?
A media blitz about the corridor for the masses beyond this room, and the 4 presidents on the train shown on all the national TVs. That would be my goal.
That's great. That's ambitious. Brian?
Two quick next steps. One, putting poles in the ground, wires to households, meters on households. We're doing that already, but we want to do it at the scale that we think we can start in January. 2, we figured out how to bring in capital. We figured out how to bring in partners and find the right projects. So there isn't a reason that we need to be limited to Zambia. We have other countries in the corridor that we'd be open to facilitating projects that are win-win for one of the other 2 corridor partners, or both, in hydropower and distribution. So I think it has a lasting impact. So that's step number 2.
Thank you so much. Andre, the final word.
I would say from the investor side, I would say that transmission lines at this point are essential. You have already the foundation set. You have cross-border agreements between Angola, DRC, Zambia, and Tanzania. So I would follow definitely with transmission lines.
Fantastic. That's where we have to leave it. This is the last session on the plenary for the day, so please give this panel a round of applause. Thank you so much.
I'm breaking my confusion and I'm letting my fear fly away. Someday I will see what I fear the most is there's no more left to handle. So maybe I should see right behind your shoulder, nothing that'll please me. Truth is, nothing really matters. I'm just stealing time, shaking off my delusion, shaking off my delusion. I'm just stealing time, I'm just stealing time, shaking off my delusion, shaking off my delusion. It's such a beautiful loop of thoughts. I remember you were here, walking through the endless night.